It's time for another edition of Lewis at Large with Warner Lewis. 60 minutes of smart talk radio with interesting guests from all walks of life begins right now. So sit back and enjoy. And now, from the flight deck, here's your host, Warner Lewis.
Well, welcome everybody to another segment of Lewis at Large. Yours truly, Warner Lewis from the flight deck. And of course, that means some more smart talk radio is in your future. And this segment, interesting. We're going to be talking about relationships. We're going to be talking about communication with Nikki Rolland. She is many things. She is very much involved with Kripalu Yoga teaching, Kripalu Yoga Teachers Association. She completed her medicine wheel training with the Four Winds Society and studied directly with experts in that area. She also leads workshops on adults and children on healing, yoga, and many other subjects. But this is a very personal story about her own relationships and her own family. We will share quite a bit about her personal life because it's all relevant to the interview. Nikki, how are you, my friend?
I'm fine, thank you. Thanks for having me today.
Good. We are very happy to have you. You have quite a story to tell here. Let's dive right in. Share with our Lewis at Large listeners, if you would, a little bit more about Nikki Rolland, the background and maybe the trigger incidents that led you to all of this.
Well, I'm a spiritual teacher and author. My book came out last year, Stepping into Consciousness, A Guide to Living a Life of Joy, Meaning, and Abundance. It's available on Amazon. And, I guess I began my journey into spirituality at midlife. I had 3 children, and I was a stay-at-home mom. And I guess I just hit a wall, and I wanted to learn how I could be a better mother, a better woman, a better wife, a better person, a happier person, and really better at being a mother and being a wife. You know, there are a lot of things that happen in life where you just don't feel you have the control to help your children the way you would like to. One of my children was being quite bullied at school, and I didn't really know how to help her. My ex-husband had lost his job at the time. He was laid off. He was one of the technology casualties at the beginning of 2000. So that was all very stressful. So I sort of began a quest to sort of understand and learn some tools, how I could help myself instead of always going to other people, how I could help my family. So I learned about energy work, shamanism, yoga, meditation, and and then I just discovered I loved it, and I felt a really strong calling to serve in that way.
Nikki, would you say that prior to all of these sort of trigger events, you would have that things like yoga, spiritualism, etc., were off your radar screen, or were those subjects you were always interested in?
Well, I was, interested, but I didn't know what a healer was. I didn't know what a shaman was. I didn't know what chakras were. I mean, basic elements of holistic living, I really didn't know. I would say it really wasn't my world. My ex-husband was a banker. I was a stay-at-home mom. I got involved with the school. I did a lot of volunteer work, so I really wasn't in that world at all. So, so it was all really new, and this whole beautiful world opened up to me, and, it was just very exciting.
All right, so talk to us now, and the level of detail is obviously up to you, but talk to us about the separation from your husband and again, sort of what triggered and what happened from there.
Well, I guess when I started writing my book, I got really into my book. He began an affair with a woman, and but obviously, I think we had come to a point where we wanted to go in different directions. We had a wonderful marriage, we had wonderful children, we love each other very much, but I think we want different things, and we'd sort of hit a crossroads. And when people have affairs, it happens. It's always an indication that there's a problem. So we. We're not the first couple, we're not the last couple, and we're really trying to, we've decided that we would like to part ways, and that for the second half of our life we will be happier, I think, on our own, creating new lives, but we're really trying to be there and supporting each other and, forgiving each other, supporting each other, loving each other, being kind, and we'll see where it all goes.
Well, how are the kids reacting through all this?
Well, we've really, we're a very close family, so, bad things happen to, in close families too. And we're still very much focusing on the fact that we're still a family, even though my ex-husband and I are no longer a couple. So we still, try to make time for family dinners once a week, where we get along very well. We have lunches together. So I think, I think when there are lies, it's very stressful for children. But when things come out into the open and you say, yes, there's some issues, but we're addressing them, and we're really trying to do this lovingly, and what do you need? We're still your parents. We still love you. The children handle it much better than when there are lies and when people are being passively cruel to each other, which often happens in a marriage before things really, come up to the surface. So I think my children are really better off now and happier.
Again, if you just joined us, yours truly, Warner Lewis from the flight deck of Lewis at Large Radio. In this segment, we're talking about all kinds of things, quite a bit about communication, quite a bit about relationships, quite a bit about real-life issues with Nicky Rolland. She is very spiritual. She is a spiritual teacher. She's a yoga teacher as well. The work is called Stepping into Consciousness, a guide to living a life of joy, meaning, and abundance. Nicky, here's one. There are going to be people out there that said, nothing against yoga, nothing against spiritualism and these kind of transcendental journeys, but I've got a real life, I got a job, I've got kids, I've got soccer practice, I've got bills. That feels like a luxury activity to me. I don't have the time. Answer that for us, will you?
Yeah, that's a great question, actually. I have 3 children, and, I work, building my business, and, I'm a busy person. I go out, I have friends, I have, bills to pay as well, I have stresses. And, this kind of thing, I think a lot of people think that it's sort of a black or white kind of world. You're either in it full hog or you're not. And, I really believe, for me, spirituality really means being deeply connected to who you truly are. And, there are different ways you can do it. I teach meditation, and I really encourage people to create a meditation practice, but, devoting 5 minutes a day, where you're just, and you can start, just connecting to your breath and just, closing your eyes and just breathing and being aware of your breath. And that will bring you to the present moment, where you're not worried about the future, and you're not thinking about, past mistakes you did and what I should have done, what I could have done. And it just makes you feel peaceful, so it's really something accessible for everybody. And, you can take a yoga class, and, you don't even have to do yoga. It's more the way you approach your life. So when you approach it in a way that's mindful, in a way that's connected, so you can go to the gym and do a spinning class, take a spinning class. I love spinning, with all the fun music they play and the aerobic exercise, and if you do it in a mindful way, in an aware way, with high awareness, it becomes a spiritual connection, where you're just connected, body, mind, and spirit. And I believe, we all want to live that way, and we all benefit by living that way.
What about, Nicky, when you talk about divorce? Boy, that is a lightning rod. You seem very much at peace with what has happened. What do you say to those that are in the throes of or are facing what will undoubtedly be a very ugly, combative, ugly, really divisive divorce situation?
Well, the most important thing is to get that out of your mind, that it does not need to be like that. And what's interesting is I find, when things came out into the open between what had transpired between my ex and I, people immediately want to take sides. They immediately want to take sides and sort of, pit one against the other, and, that whole combative climate wants to happen. And my ex and I were quick at the beginning to really urge our family, our friends, there's no need to take sides. I had most of my friends actually called my ex-husband and said, we're sorry about what happened. Yes, we're better friends with your ex-wife, but, we still, like you as a person. We still support you. We still wish you well. And it's just a mindset, really, that it doesn't have to be, negative. It doesn't have to be warlike. And people get really stressed and angry because there's fear, and once you really go to that place where, I care about you, I was married to you, we had children together, just because we're getting divorced doesn't mean I hate you. And even if you were mean to me, it doesn't mean I hated you. Trying to go to that place of forgiveness, compassion. We all make mistakes. We're all nasty sometimes. and really, focusing more on creating a win-win situation rather than a win-lose situation. And it's when you're hurt, you sometimes want to lash out. You want to hurt the other person. But, then you just spiral into darkness, and it just gets worse and worse. So I guess my number one recommendation would be just to imagine believe more, that there's a possibility that you can do this lovingly and support each other.
Nikki, what about, and again, we haven't talked about this yet, but from where you sit and the people that you work with, is there a difference in the way men approach this in general versus the way women approach it?
Well, in my teachings I talk about sort of the masculine and feminine aspects, and they don't really have to do with gender. So the masculine is really, action-oriented, whereas the feminine is receiving-oriented. So it depends if you're a more masculine type of person or a more feminine type of person. So, for instance, the masculine traits are very competitive. The feminine traits are more nurturing and nourishing. So it's not so much the gender, it's more what your disposition is, if that makes sense. So there are a lot of women who have much more masculine, domineering, win-lose, fear-based characteristics, and a lot of men that are maybe more feminine, they're more receiving. So you have to stay out of the, you always want to do a balance of the two, because life, to be successful, you want to give and you want to receive. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think so. You've been hinting and sort of touching on these subjects throughout this conversation, but let's talk specifically about OTGF, openness, trust, gratitude, and forgiveness, and those four concepts and what that really means and how people can apply it.
Okay, yeah, that's an excellent question, actually. I think the crux of the whole spirituality question is to live in that place of unconditional love. So it's not conditional love where I love you because you're married to me, or I love you because you're nice to me, or I love you because you give me money or whatever. It's really I love you unconditionally, regardless of what I'm getting in return. And it all starts with loving yourself unconditionally, so even if, we have some kind of failure or some kind of loss and we're scared, we still love ourselves. We're still in that place where, okay, it's okay. I love myself, the self-love and so many people, they don't love themselves. They're always judging themselves, right or wrong, win or loss, those kind of things. So it really starts with you, and you really want to bring in that love, that unconditional love. So the tools I teach to do that are openness, so being open to see the gifts that are around us, because sometimes we're in such a negative headspace that someone's giving us a gift and we don't even see it. Someone's trying to offer us love and we can't even see the love because we're in such a negative headspace. So it's really about being open to realize that we live in a benevolent universe that cares and loves us and wants us to be happy, and to be open to see the beauty, because every day we can all choose to see beauty, or we can choose to see ugliness. We can choose to see the hate that's around us, or we can choose to see the love that's around us. So openness. Then trust is, really trusting, again, that we live in a benevolent world where the world wants us to be happy. People want us to be happy. We want to be happy, instead of a world of suspicion, which I think a lot of us live in because we're so scared. We're so fear-based. So that trust, and then there's the gratitude, of saying thank you. Every morning, whether you're navigating through a divorce, dealing with difficult people, an illness, problems with your children, with your career, really waking up every day and saying thank you, thank you, thank you for what I have. Because no matter the problems you're facing, we all face problems. We always have something to feel grateful about. So really focusing on that place of thank you, and gratitude. And then, and then the last one is forgiveness, and forgiving yourself, forgiving others. We're so hard on ourselves. We don't forgive, we need to forgive ourselves for not always, being perfect and not always doing exactly what we would like to do if we get upset or sad or scared or whatever. And, they all, you can start with any one of them, so for someone it might be easier to start by forgiving themselves or forgiving someone who's hurt them. And then they'll see that then as they forgive, then they become more open, then they become more trusting, or you start with the openness, So it's sort of like a wheel that feeds into each other. And the more you practice those four, OTGF, the more you tap into unconditional love. And then you can feel compassionate and really love yourself and just lead a spiritual life.
Well, as we start to wind down here, a lot of what you're talking about, while spiritual, seems very logical, and it feels to me like a lot of this has to do with how you choose, so to speak, to wake up each day and how you choose to respond to things, because I do agree with you, we're not helpless here. If there was a piece of advice, so to speak, that you could leave with our listeners, whether they're getting divorced or they're just facing a difficult time at work or some other financial issues, who knows what's kind of the sort of the takeaway out of this, and what's your primary sort of overarching piece of advice?
Well, I guess my main one is that we're each responsible for the life we create. So, we all have challenges that are sent our way, and it's how we deal with them. And we're here to learn lessons, to learn, to grow, to expand. So we're really creators of our life, and that we're responsible for our happiness.
Well, it has been an interesting conversation, very relevant indeed, very real life with Nicky Rolland. She is many things. She's a yoga teacher. She's a spiritualist, obviously, probably just in her own mind. Just as importantly, most importantly, she's the mother of 3 daughters. And the work is called Stepping into Consciousness, a guide to living a life of joy, meaning, and abundance. Nicky, if you would, how can people get a copy of this work? And also, I know you have your own website where you talk in depth about these subjects, so share those with us.
Okay, great. Thank you. Well, visit my website, NickyRolland.com, and join my newsletter, Conscious Explorations. I send out a newsletter every week. And my book is available on Amazon.com. And I also have a consciousness store on my website that has a lot of interesting products, fun products to help you recharge, renew, refocus. And one of them is I have an audio guide series that walks you through the main concepts of my book. So for someone who, not everyone wants to sit down and read a book, they can download my audio guide series and ebook on my website, and they're walked through the main concepts. So that can be helpful as well. Great.
Thank you so much for spending part of your day with us, and best of luck to you and your 3 daughters. And again, appreciate the input you've given us today.
Well, thank you so much for having me on the show. I enjoyed myself thoroughly.
You bet. We will be back with more right after this on Lewis at Large.